Good evening. It's another Tuesday evening, and that means we have another podcast with Pastor, teen podcast with Pastor. And don't forget, of course, right off the top, I want to mention our youth rally coming up this Friday night. Be sure to join us March 4th, 6:30 p.m. Our theme is Aim for the Mark, and we will be having Pastor John McQueen from Fremont Baptist Church with us. And listen, if you need a ride to that, be sure to contact Brother Looper and let him know, and he'll be ready, of course. We'll have folks picking people up for church that evening. Now, as far as today's topic, I want to draw our attention to this thought that is the title, as you saw in the thumbnail, Making Yourself Dateable. Now, young people, you've come to the age where you start thinking about, to girls, boys start to become a little cute, and to boys, girls start to become pretty instead of just being a nuisance, either on either side being a nuisance. And so you get to that point where you start to have an interest. I do not believe that in your high school years is a good time to act on that interest. The reason for that being is because there are so many things that you need to focus on that emotionally, for a teenager, that development is not strong enough to be able to juggle everything that you have to do to finish school at the same time to engage in an emotional relationship such as dating. That is one of the main reasons why I always advise teenagers to wait until they graduate from high school before they start dating. However, this does not mean that in high school you won't have an interest. And it also doesn't mean that in high school you cannot start preparing yourself to be dateable. There are several things that you should do if you want to prepare yourself to be dateable. In our society that we live in, so often dateability, if I know that's not actually a word, but I'm going to probably use it here a little bit in this broadcast, our dateability, or the ability that we have to be dated, is gauged on, usually for a lady, on how pretty she is. If a guy thinks she's pretty, then he considers her to be dateable. And for a lady, if she considers a guy to be charming in what he says and kind of how he acts, then she considers him to be dateable. However, this is a very surface thing. When we measure someone's ability to be dated, or dateability, if you will, by whether or not they are pretty or whether or not they are charming, these should be factors, yes. But as you are in your high school years and as you are trying to make yourself ready to be dateable once you get out of high school, there are more things that you need to work on than just looking pretty or being charming. Those are surface things that will attract someone who's only interested in what's on the surface. I believe that every wise-hearted young person, every wise-hearted single person ought to look much deeper than just in how pretty somebody is and in just how charming somebody is. Though these should be factors. Listen, when you graduate high school and when you go into the dating world, so to speak, and you think a girl looks ugly, don't date her. If you think a guy's not charming, don't date him. And say, well, they have such wonderful character, but they're ugly. Well, no. You want to date somebody, you want to marry somebody someday who you think looks good and who you think is charming. And so I'm not taking it clear to the other end of the spectrum to where we say, well, good looks don't matter at all and charm doesn't matter at all. No, that's not what we're talking about here. But we should be looking for somebody that has a little more depth to them than just that they're pretty or just that they're charming. Even so, that's what I want to take a moment in our broadcast today to talk about. What can you do? If you are a young person in high school, kind of waiting to get into that dating game that will come after you graduate high school, what can you do to make yourself dateable? I'm going to be talking about this both in this podcast, and also I'm going to be talking about it again in our final podcast of this first season about making yourself dateable. So you'll see next week, there will kind of be a part 2 to this as well. As we come to making ourselves dateable, there are several things that we need to look at. Today, I'm going to focus on the first one. The first one is that we make ourselves dateable by working on our character. As a young person, we you probably look at yourself and say, "Oh, I'm ready to date." But do you have the character to attract somebody with character in dating? There is an old saying, and I believe there's some truth to it, that birds of a feather will flock all together. If you are somebody of low character, you will attract somebody's attention who also has low character. Now, I don't know any young person who sits there and when they dream of who they are going to date and marry someday, has a dream of dating and marrying somebody of low character. That's not our goal. That's not your dream. Your dream is to marry somebody that, for the lady to marry a man that has chivalry and has, a sense of honor and is handsome and has that kind of, that deep character, the values and principles that make him a good, solid man. And for young men, we have a dream. You should have a dream. I say we have a dream. I'm already married, so I have a wonderful wife. But young men have a dream when they're single of marrying a young lady who has the character to be able to keep up with things at home and be able to take care of the home and be that queen of her house, if you will. Even so, this should be your dream. If this is not your dream, then I think you need to take a second look at your dream. But if we are ourselves full of low character in what we do, we will attract others who also have low character. You say, Pastor, how can I tell if I have low character? There are three things I'm going to tell you that you can look at to see if you have low character. All right. Number one, and if you have low character in these areas, then don't hang your head and say, "Oh my goodness, I'm a failure." No, you have these teenage years to work on these things so that when you can begin to date as a young adult, you have already mastered the character. So in your high school years here, work on these three things. These will be a huge indicator as to your character. All right. Number one. The number one factor you need to look at that will speak to your character is, are you on time? Are you somebody who gets where you need to be on time? Now, I understand that, especially if you're riding with your parents and things, some of that's dependent on their ability to get there. But listen, if your parents are sitting in the car and they're always having to wait on you to get out there, you are the one who is late. You are the one who's not on time. Don't make your parents wait. Don't make your parents sit in the car and wait on you to go somewhere. You be there. You be waiting for them. You be ready when they're ready to go. Make sure that you're on time. Gauge yourself. If you have a job in your teenage years here, are you on time to work? Are you ready to be at work when you're supposed to be at work, and even maybe be a little bit early to work so that you are there? These are an indicator of character. Good character dictates that one must be in time, must be on time where they are going. If you're here in your teenage years and you're always running late, you need to work on that. You need to start getting ready earlier. You need to start preparing things ahead of time so that you can be on time. This is a wonderful sign of good character. This is all a part of making ourselves dateable, making yourself dateable as a young person. All right? The first step to making yourself dateable is to work on your character. How are we going to work on our character? One, we're going to work on being on time. Then number two, the second thing is, what does your personal hygiene look like? All right, this speaks a lot to your character. Do you brush your teeth? Do you keep yourself clean? Do you keep your clothes clean? Do you keep your hair combed? Do you keep your hair brushed, ladies? Do you keep yourself looking presentable? What is your personal hygiene like? If you never brush your teeth, if you never bathe like you should, you say, "Well, I bathe once a week." Listen, I'm going to tell you this. Personal hygiene dictates that you should probably be taking a shower every day. All right? And I think it's a good habit to shower and clean yourself every day. It helps make sure you're not smelling and makes it much more pleasant for those around you. This, I believe, is a sign of character. At least you should have some regular bathing schedule, and that's more than just once a week or once a month. If it's once a month, then we're all in trouble when you come around. Anyways, where's your personal hygiene at? And do you brush your teeth? Do you floss your teeth if you need to? Do you, again, keep your hair combed? There is, let me just step aside here on this note for just a second. I do not like this messy hairstyle that the world is presenting, this idea that you look like you just climbed out of bed, and it's like you let the pillow be your hairstylist for the day, and however that little crest and mountain kind of pokes up on top, that just is just how it's going to be today. Now, show that you care enough about how you look. Ladies, brush your hair in the morning. Gentlemen, comb your hair in the morning. Put a part in that thing and comb it over and make yourself look sharp. That's a good sign of character. You care about what you look like. You care about what you smell like. You care about what you're bringing with you when you come, in a sense of how people view you that are around you. How can I work on my character to make myself dateable? I can work on, number one, being on time. Number two, work on personal hygiene. Then number three, the last one here that we're going to mention under this for character and making ourselves dateable, is keep your space clean. Keep your space clean, all right? Listen, ladies, if you want to be a wife someday and you want to keep house for a husband, then you need to learn to keep your own room. If you go into your room and there's clothes flung around everywhere and that's just a mess everywhere, then that's how you're going to keep your house when you get married. That means you need to start building habits that would cause you to pick up your clothes and put them away, pick up your things and put them away. Don't leave your shoes. Don't go to your room and kick your shoes off and leave them on the other side of the room. Pick them up and put them in your closet. Have a spot where you put things. Be organized. Keep your room orderly. This is a good sign of character, that you have the self-discipline to put things back where they go. And so we find here as character, and I picked on the ladies there, but gentlemen, that goes the same for you. Keep your room clean. Your room ought not always be a mess. You shouldn't have your clothes laying around. You shouldn't have, because listen, you're going to wind up getting married and you're going to be expecting your wife to pick up all after you. Understand this, when you get married, you didn't marry your mother. You're marrying a wife. She shouldn't have to pick up after you all the time. And so this is part of character. Character. Now remember, low character will attract people of low character. High character will attract people of high character. If you are wanting to make yourself dateable to the right kind of person, then you need to work on your character. You work on your character right now as a teenager in those three areas. One, make sure you're on time. Two, make sure you've got good personal hygiene. And three, make sure that you keep your areas clean. All right, listen, I've got two more on this that we're going to talk about next week with making yourself dateable. We'll be back next Tuesday night for the final episode of the series. Thank you for listening. God bless, and have a great rest of your day.